the season is done. And much like that game, thank God it's over. That was hard to watch, that second half. It was a strange game. Ultimately, the scoreline will reflect a battering, and that's fair enough considering the way we finished that game. And yet at the same time, that first quarter was absolutely brilliant. And we had no right to play that well in the first quarter. We were up 20 points to 1 in the dying seconds before we, of course, gave away a red time goal. That's just something that we do better than anyone else. We were 20 points up and all over them and playing inspirationally well. But at the same time, from that point, we got outscored by 87 points. And most of that coming in the second half. I think that's the 8th or 9th time we've led a game at halftime. And funnily enough, we lose that game by 11 goals in the end anyway. These reviews are getting tiresome, I won't lie. Which is not to say I'm not still enjoying the flow. I think a lot of you have picked up in the comments that I've seen fatigue. To be honest, that is also part of a result of my lifestyle at the moment. It's very full-time work or content. So there's a bit of that. And you guys make it easy for me. I've enjoyed making content for you guys and I will continue to do so. But there is a monotony to the way these reviews are going. They're either really bad or I'm reflecting on a loss where I'm picking out aspects of it that were really good. And there's been a few games like that. So this game, we'll start with the first quarter because we had no right to play that well. I'll clarify what I mean by that. On paper, that team shouldn't have been all over Sydney, and that is a credit to West Coast. I was thinking before the game, I was like, there might be some motivation to avoid being a one-win team this year. And I think I was right about that. There's clearly some motivation, and that's been a factor in our 3 best games this year: St Kilda, Adelaide, and now Sydney. I mean, St Kilda possibly motivated by the death of Adam Selwood that week, and they came to play and did him proud. There was a farewell game against Adelaide, played really well, and in this game probably also some desire to avoid the infamy, I suppose, of being a one-win team. So unfortunately, there has been some other non-football or external reason for us to play that well each time. But I'll give them credit because it was inspirational, to be honest, and that will give them some belief of how well they can play when they try. And the way I would characterise it is, and it's been true of all the games we've played well this year, we just played bloody good team football. It's not so much about the individuals out there. We had a very young team tonight. I mean, to carry, I say carry with all due respect, but I mean, to have a debutant in Luca Grego, have a second gamer in Jacob Newton, Hamish Davis, an 18-year-old pick 66 from last year, Job Shanahan, a first-year player. I could go on and on about how ill-equipped this team is on paper to win games, and that has only gotten more true as the season has gone on. And, we've missed McGovern, probably won't count Dom Sheed, but Elliot Yeo, Jake Waterman. You take out the 2 captains who didn't play well and then got injured or suspended, Allen and Duggan. You take out Harley Reid, and I would have been very fearful for how this team would play and present. But they did themselves and us proud for a quarter and a half, or let's give them the first half. They were still up at halftime, but particularly that first quarter was inspirational. And again, when I say team football, the skills were still horrible. Like, there was some really bad errors, and I think Tom McCarthy, who I love and will be a great player, had probably his worst game at AFL level. And that's a really high bar, to be fair, because he is a damn good player and he's played well most weeks. But, he was uncharacteristically making a lot of mistakes. But as a team, we ensured that those mistakes didn't hurt us. I think there was a number of times we turned the ball over and then won it back with an inspirational tackle. And I think we had the first 7 holding the ball free kicks paid our way because of our relentless intent. So that's a great blueprint for the way we want to play. And then in the second half, as the game wore on, it actually got so bad it started to resemble when they beat us by 171 points a couple of years ago. Admittedly, there's 2/3 of that team must be different to the team that played Sydney in 2023. But, it was that one-sided, and I was just itching to turn the telly off. And I probably would have if I didn't have to review this game and I didn't want to miss anything. So, a pretty sad way to end the year, but hopefully it's something that we can just forget about in the long run. Absolutely. I mean, I'd say that last quarter and a half was probably as bad as the first quarter against Carlton. And those are the 2 times this year we've nipped back into being that pathetic football team that we were 2 years ago. And in some ways, like, we have made ground and been more competitive and probably played better in more games this year, if that makes sense, compared to last year. I felt like last year we were either brilliant or we were diabolical, and I feel like we've raised the floor a little bit on what our worst was last year. But obviously our best football hasn't been enough to win games. And it's also happened to be against really good teams, which has worked against us for the most part, which is unfortunate. Like last year we beat up on teams that didn't play finals. Did we beat a single finalist last year? I don't think we did. This year we've played some really red hot footy against teams like that were always going to win. Adelaide, Geelong, the Brisbane Lions, and even this version of Sydney is good, regardless of what the ladder says. So the contested ball element and the pressure and the intent in the first half is obviously something that we build our game around, and I thought we were exceptional, and I want to give us credit for that. And I was furious for most of the second half of the game because it just got a little bit pathetic, but I suppose you could say it's a really young team, and that might be, without double checking, close to the youngest team we've played all year. Like the amount of teenagers in that team, or close to teenagers, is crazy. I forgot to mention Ruben Jinby's injury. I don't want to catastrophize that because it didn't look great, and I'm no doctor. But for anyone who didn't see it, like if you're at the game, from what I can tell, the impact of the injury seemed to come from when Jinby's knee hit Flynn's head. And he seemed to be in real agony. And as far as I can tell, he didn't land badly on the joint. So I don't know how much better that really is, but I tend to think these, like, you know, the serious ones like your ACLs, etc. Well, I would have thought they're usually from awkwardly landing or changing direction, and that just wasn't the nature of this injury. So I'm hoping he's just got like a badly bruised knee or something like that. That's probably the best case scenario at this point. But that would be an absolute dagger to the heart if we have a serious Ruben Jinby injury, because he has been, well, he could be second in the best and fairest this year without absolutely double checking that. I reckon that's a pretty good bet. We'll talk about some individuals. Look, I am fairly, lenient, I suppose, with the criticisms that I put on this football club, and I do think that has to come with the time that we're in, right? So we're a young team at the bottom of the rebuild cycle, and therefore the expectations and the criticisms I throw at players and the team broadly will not be the same when we're a better team. And for somebody, if anyone's been following my work on True Footy in particular, like 4 years ago when West Coast started this decline, I was so much harsher back then than I am now. And that's just a sign of the times. I won't, go to town on young players. I don't like to do that in general. I don't like the optics of doing that on this channel by slaughtering players in particular. But also with keeping the integrity of the channel in mind, I think there has got to be some place for that. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm starting to reach the point now with this young group who is still a young team, and I am lenient on broadly the performances this year. But I am starting to develop harder opinions on some of the young players that we have seen play a decent amount of football now, like 30, 25 to 40 games or whatever. And I gotta say, I just cannot imagine a world where players like Tyler Brockman, Clay Hall, and Noah Long are part of this West Coast team when they're good. And I'm starting to feel as though I've seen enough of them where I just cannot see it working. I suppose it comes down to physical attributes as much as anything. I mean, Clay Hall, we talked about his speed, both, reflexively, like with his hands and the way he moves, and also like his ability to run. That plus the defensive element of his game and the limited hurt factor, I just feel like this guy probably shouldn't be in the team as early as next year. I think he may have a career as a depth player, playing mostly waffle and moving into the AFL team as support. I mean, all good sides have players like that, but he has disappointed me in recent times, and I'm just not sure if he makes the grade. Same thing with Noah Long. I mean, as far as attributes go, for a small ground level player like that, he's not dangerous around goals, and his agility is really not great for a small player. Tyler Brockman as well. I mean, I'm struggling to find a truly elite AFL attribute there. I mean, he's pretty agile and he can get himself out of trouble, but his kicks are loopy. There's no penetration. There's no attacking dare with Tyler Brockman. He doesn't kick a lot of goals. He did take an amazing hang last week or the week before or something like that, but we're getting to that point now. And that's I suppose, in a way, there's a silver lining of that. It's just that it's symptomatic of us getting to know a little bit more about our list because we've given games to players that, deserve the opportunity and they've reached 30 or 40 games. We're starting to learn who's likely to be there and who's not. That's not to say that we immediately delist them, and it's not to say as well that we're in a diabolical state because we have players in our best 22 that won't make it. I mean, it will still be true when we're knocking on the door of finals in a few years, hopefully, that we will still have players in the 22 that won't be there when we're a premiership team, and that cycle will just continue over and over again. So these are just observations I'm making. I feel like I've seen enough of some of these players now, and we seriously need an injection of talent if that wasn't obvious enough. I remember saying last year I wanted Ollie Hannaford in the draft, or at least, I just kind of liked him, and I thought maybe West Coast would go there because he's talented, but we also have a lot of half-forward players, lots of smalls in our next generation academy. We've got Brockman, we've got Owies, we've got Noah Long, we've got Liam Ryan, who may or may not have just played his last game for West Coast. I don't know. We'll leave that to another video, but now I'm thinking, wow, that was kind of naive to just think that West Coast probably shouldn't draft small forwards from this point because we have an oversupply of them. I think there is a very bare cupboard. There's quantity, and we are seriously lacking quality with those types of players. Anyway, I'm focusing on one part of the ground there, but overall, we're starting to learn a little bit more about our list. On the positive side, I mean, Job Shanahan definitely has a future at AFL level. I would like to see, and I don't want to undercut this with a negative, but I would love to see him kick a few more goals in general play. And what we're seeing right now with him is he's a very aerial marking leading player, which is great because I can't believe how good he is at doing that at AFL level in his first season. Another bag of 3 tonight, and his set shot game is outstanding. I think he could be a really high level key forward, and certainly our best key forward already behind Jake Waterman. I wouldn't have thought that would be the case at the start of this season. So he's got a bit to develop there, but yeah, geez, definitely a player that's going to be part of our long-term plans. I have firmly moved Campbell Chesser out of the not sure category to, yes, he is better than Clay Hall, he is better than Noah Long, he's better than Tyler Brockman, and frankly, it's not even close. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that, but I really like Chesser's speed. I mean, there's a lot of things Chesser does in a game that he won't get a stat for. Running back hard to affect a spoil, which I suppose is a recorded stat, but there was a really good defensive chase he did tonight, and he just tapped the ball over the line, and it wouldn't have counted for much stat-wise. But, I think last year I was talking about a lack of outside quality players, and I think Chesser is starting to emerge as that hard-running outside player who is untidy. Again, his composure wasn't great by foot again tonight, but that is a team-wide problem at the moment, and I think he really adds something to this team at the moment. I'm not saying he's going to be an A-grader, but I at least now feel like we've moved him into the, okay, he's going to be part of the future category, and I'm starting to make, negative decisions on some of the other guys. So jury's still out on guys like Tyrell Dewar. In Dewar's defense, I think there are some genuine AFL traits there, but I suppose he hasn't had a lot of continuity. He's been in and out of the team and he's been dropped. Whereas, we've probably carried players over the last few years who have stayed in the team regardless of how well they're playing. And Dewar has come in and out, and I do wonder if given enough time, he will develop that composure. I think with him, it's probably a little bit more between the ears. Hamish Davis is tracking along okay. I still feel like we probably need to give him a little bit more time to develop his body as much as anything. But I think last week he had 19 disposals and half of them were contested possessions as well. So there's something there, even if his kicking isn't great. But he's a hard runner. He allows us to play a bit wider because of his running capacity, which is something we desperately needed last year. He's pretty good overhead and I think makes solid decisions. So still jury is out. Jacob Newton played well tonight. I think the knock on Jacob Newton it's that he probably just needs to find the footy a little bit more and impact more. But when he does get the ball, I think he did something pretty good every time he went near it tonight. It was a good strong mark, kicked his first goal. Another snap where you just know that if he'd played a few more games, he might have steadied before he kicked it. So obviously that was a promising debut. Luca Gregor, I have no real opinion on at this point. He was involved a lot, got his hands on the footy. Trait-wise, there's some speed and some dash, and he's a small body at the moment, but he probably will be that tough, strong, competitive type. So I think future role player there, but again, it's too early to tell on him. You got to go easy on the first game. It was an okay debut, even if there were some bad mistakes as well. As for the rucks, Bailey Williams kind of had another game where, he did a couple of brilliant things and nothing else. I think I heard McQualter talk about him in a press conference and just sort of defend him, saying, look, it's his first year as a forward. And that is kind of true, I suppose, if I'm being fair. Like, he has been thrown into a ruck position for most of his career, and I suppose there is some upside to letting him cook as a forward. We've given most of the year this year, and there has been moments of brilliance, although set shot kicking is not good, and his marking is inconsistent at best. So we'll see. It's not really an immediate problem in the sense that it's not going to be easy to fix. So I suppose there's Archer Reid and Jack Williams, but, Archer's goal kicking himself is lackluster at best. And Jack Williams fell off a cliff this year. So both of those guys need to have good pre-seasons to be in the conversation. Matt Flynn's an interesting one. I oscillate so hard between deciding who's better or worse between he and Bailey Williams. But there is something that is a trend with a lot of the games we've played well this year. It has been Matt Flynn being huge aerially. He took a number of good marks, particularly in the first half when we were playing well. I remember this happening a few times this year, most notably the Essendon game where we lost by 2 points earlier this year. He's added that string to his bow, and I thought he played really well and was impactful for us, more so than Bailey Williams tonight. I don't know what the hit out count was, but I think Bailey had more than Matt, so that's confusing. But anyway, just an observation. Matt Flynn is capable of actually being quite impactful for us. I'm not sure what else there is to say. I think that Elijah Hewitt, I haven't lost faith that he's going to be a good player, but he's had a mad case of the fumbles for the last couple of months now. I wonder if he's just getting tired or something. It's been a long year for him, and I think he's played the most games he's ever played in his life, like including junior footy. He's never played this amount of footy in one season. I don't know if it's actually that fatigue, though. Like, it's not his energy or his intensity that's dropped off. Maybe the consistency of that. It's hard to tell watching on TV and not watching him exclusively. But the fumbles, he's got a mad case of that at the moment. So hopefully he cleans that up next season and going forward. It needs to improve because it's letting him down. There was a moments where he threatened to do something and he just couldn't quite. But overall, we are missing so many of our best soldiers. And we are going to have an influx of good quality draft talent hopefully this year. Obviously, it's not the strongest draft, but we might have 4 picks in a really good range. And the onus is on us, of course, to use those picks well. So we're going to do a lot of that this off-season on this channel. Lots of discussion about that. For now, I think I'll do a season review at some point this week. We'll also probably do a similar sort of video on True Footy this week, reviewing the non-finalists. Actually, we'll do that next week. But if anyone's interested, we'll be live streaming on True Footy tomorrow. Western Bulldogs versus Fremantle. Up the doggies. It is a big game. And if anyone wants to watch that along with us and take part in the chat, please feel welcome to. So for now, the season ends. I did not get to review a single victory this year. I thought I let myself believe maybe at quarter time. I kind of let myself believe that Sydney might just stop trying, but that is not something that they tend to do unless it's a grand final. But long season. Already looking ahead to round 1, 2026. And some soldiers to come back, some new talent will be exciting. But thanks for all your support this year. I don't mean to sound like this is the end of content for the season. It's not. We'll be back as soon as this week. But I do appreciate you guys tuning into the reviews, giving me your thoughts. I admire all of you for, as much as I record all these videos, you guys are the ones who punish yourselves by watching the reviews after watching the game, and I appreciate your support. I appreciate that you guys want to hear what I have to say. We've developed a cool little community here, and I'm sure there will be many years of this to come. Hopefully, this is the worst it ever gets, honestly. I really hope that. But I do know through lived experience of being an Eagles fan, and we fall harder for a good team, we fall harder than any other club in the AFL aside from maybe Essendon and Carlton. They had their own scandals, but I think we might take the cake for our own swings between being an amazing football club and the joke of the competition. But I know through lived experience that these times will make the good times sweeter. And I'm going to end it on that note. Thanks for listening, guys. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the Sydney game. I will review the season sometime this week. Up the Eagles.